Hello, and welcome to the Connection Podcast with Connect Global. This is a segment we're calling Global Neighborhood, a conversation with our friends and partners in order to share a global perspective of what's going on in our communities, our nation, and around the world.
Hey guys, this is Travis Moffitt, one of the co-founders here at Connect Global, and we're so excited to be coming to you again in a podcast series. We had launched a little while back. We're relaunching this podcast series today. We're very excited about this. This is our Global Neighborhood. And today I'm joined by two of our other co-founders here at Connect Global, Javier and Daniel Mendoza, who are coming to you from the great nation of Honduras.
Hello.
Javier and Daniel, how are you guys doing?
Good. Welcome in. Glad you're
Nice. Yep, so we're very excited to sort of reinitiate this conversation from Connect Global. And the idea being is that we will, from time to time, bring in guests from various other parts of the world. I'm here in the United States. As we mentioned, Javier and Danielle are there in Honduras. We have friends in Europe. We have friends in Asia who, again, from time to time will be joining us on this call, because what we want to be able to have is a true international, a true global conversation around topics like the Great Commission and how does the church, or me as an individual, you as an individual, move forward in fulfilling the Great Commission. So we're very excited to be here with you guys. We appreciate you jumping on, whether you're watching this in a video format on Facebook or on YouTube, or if you're listening to this in a podcast format. We really appreciate you taking some time out to spend with us. We want to dive right into what's going on today. As you know, we're in late March of 2020, when this recording is being made. And so we are all globally in the midst of trying to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. So that's kind of the big thing going on. You might be listening to this in real time. Maybe you're listening to this at some point in time down the road, but just to give you some historical context as to what's going on. There's a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of different perspectives that are coming into this subject matter from the church, from the marketplace, economic perspectives. There's how we view this in the United States, what's going on there in Honduras. So this morning, we wanted to start off with at least laying some groundwork. So Javier and Daniel, you guys have now lived in Honduras. You've lived there before, back in 2015 for a year, and back in the U.S., and then just moved back to Honduras roughly 6-7 weeks ago. And then everything went on lockdown in an effort for the prevention of the coronavirus. So for all of our listeners or viewers, kind of lay a groundwork. What are the conditions there? What are the logistical conditions? How free are you guys to move, or you can find to the house? What's going on there in Honduras?
So that was basically something pretty unforeseen, I think, for everyone around the globe. Obviously, we're all in this together now at this point. When we moved to Honduras, it was kind of late January we got here, so it's been almost 2 months completely. And just about 11 days ago is when we started seeing some of the more serious and sort of severe, strict sort of impositions. So starting to close stores, starting to close roadways, starting to control movement a little bit more. And it just seemed as the world progressed in this pandemic, Honduras followed suit and definitely was even ahead of the game, I think, in some respects, in some of these measures in order to try and control the spread of this new virus. So they started implementing some curfews that, started at 7 p.m., still allowed people to get to their normal daily activities. Schools were still in, jobs, people that were still working within the community, whether that be in retail or in any other sector, communications, different things, they were still fully on and fully staffed, and still stores were still open. They were taking precautionary measures already at that point, trying to, hand out hand sanitizer. Employees were wearing gloves, some were already wearing the masks, and that was well ahead of even some of the CDC's more strict mandates and the things that they were sharing out globally. Honduras seemed to be a little bit ahead of that, which to us being here, we thought, hey, that's pretty good, because we've seen over the past couple of weeks and even a couple of months since last year, the viral spread. And literally you can see maps, you can go to the CDC, you can go to other accounts where they're showing this is how the multiplication is happening. And so even before some of the countries were experiencing it at the levels that they are, Honduras seemed to go ahead and shelter in place much quicker. The government was doing pretty much daily and sometimes semi-daily posts and updates. They were trying to share out as much information as possible. We, Connect Global, we even put out our own response to this coronavirus, making sure that everyone knew, hey, we've got a maternity home here, we've got other ministries here that are going on. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew, including our staff, that we were taking every measure seriously. We were taking every effort to make sure that people were staying safe, staying aware of the news, being able to share that information pretty rapidly, pretty quickly was very important, especially as some of these lockdowns started happening, because as this thing has progressed over the last 11 days, our city has actually shut down quite a bit. So even as most recent as last night, we've gotten some new mandates that our specific city is now shut off from both Eastern and Western movement, which effectively cuts it off from the rest of the country and allows people to more heavily self-isolate and more heavily self-quarantine.
Yeah, and they had already taken some pretty extreme precautions in that series of time between those initial 11 days and now leading up to last night by limiting the movement in vehicles to one person in each vehicle, limiting the number of people they would allow into the grocery store only being open for a certain number of hours in a day. And then we just woke up to news this morning that now grocery stores are only going to be open 3 days a week and for about 3 to 4 hours at a time. And so obviously with us being a family of 3, and that mandate that's put in place that only one person can be in a vehicle on the road, the 3 of us can't go anywhere as a family together. So, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a little unusual. So we're just getting used to the new normal, basically.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up some of those very specific differences, because in the United States, for example, we've been encouraged here in Florida to not gather in groups of 10 or more. There's some legal restrictions to that, but we don't have the same type of restrictions of one person in a car. Our stores have gone to shorter hours, but there are still about 12-hour blocks every day. But you guys were describing to me that a lot of the grocery stores there are now only open 3 days a week it was like 3 or 4 hours a day on those 3 days a week.
Yeah.
So the restrictions there are much more stringent. But Javier, you talked about too the kind of getting ahead of the curve and sort of the positive benefit of that. Do you know what the current numbers are? I was trying to look those up to see. I know I've seen in the last few days the numbers there in Honduras of verified cases. Do you have an idea of where the nation's at in that?
The numbers that have been released are in the mid-30s range. So right now
I think it's right about 36 is what they're saying.
So they're verifying, confirming still cases, and that is quite a bit lower than a lot of numbers. Honduras is a country of about 9 million people, and most of those 36, 37 cases are in almost like kind of relegated to 2 different states. And so our state has really not been impacted like some of the other parts of the country have been. Part of that is due to, while La Ceiba is a very transit sort of location, it's got access to some of the tourist destinations. It's got heavy manufacturing and touring industries here, but they are way up on the northern coast. Some of the other airports don't necessarily pass through La Ceiba as you're good into some of these other outlying states in the country. And so Tegucigalpa, the capital, which of course is the largest city in the country, has quite a few cases. Some other places where people were traveling in from other various nations, coming back to Honduras, they've been able to track some of those contacts there. And so it seems as though the information that we're getting is at least that they are following suit with the global crisis relief and crisis response, and that Honduras is doing their due diligence. It would seem that every case is being verified, every case is being checked. They're being cleared to explain those things, explain where they are. So I think that kind of gives people also maybe an idea of where the spread is starting to happen, and allows people to then make their decisions and stay in even before these curfews and these movement controls were put in place.
Yeah, Javi had touched on it briefly, saying that at this point as a world, we're all in this together. But there are some very distinct differences in various parts of the world, as we know. Obviously, Italy and Spain and other countries have been hit a lot harder, and obviously China. So they have been impacted by this at a greater degree. Here in Honduras, I know a lot of the citizens here are very concerned because the medical infrastructure is just simply not what it is in a lot of the developed world. So I think that is a key reason why they've taken it as seriously as they have, because just as a community and as a country, it's definitely kind of agreed upon amongst everyone that it's just not something that the medical infrastructure can handle.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for just a little bit, because in Connect Global, we have a lot of partnership with the medical community. And I think our observation has always been there's no lack of compassion, even well-educated doctors. We know in some specialized cases, the medical community of Honduras has reached out internationally to recruit doctors in who sort of specialize. Specifically, when we were working, for example, with the Foundation for the Honduran Children with Cancer, they were looking for pediatric oncologists. They do not have a pediatric oncology program in any of the universities in Honduras, so they had reached out to some other countries. So in our experience, I think we found very compassionate, hardworking, dedicated medical teams, medical staff, the partners that we've worked with at the hospital at Atlanta that have certainly been that, but oftentimes under-resourced.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's, like you were pointing out, Danielle, it's no lack of compassion or care for their community, but sometimes just not having the resources to deal with. You guys have spent a lot of time at the hospital there in Atlanta. How have you guys seen that dynamic play out?
Well, one of the biggest differences at the hospitals here in comparison to a hospital in the United States is that if you have an injury and you need a certain bandage or you need a certain wrap or you need a certain medication, because they are so under-resourced, they cannot treat you unless you are able to purchase those items in the immediacy that you need it. So that adds a whole nother level of desperation in a lot of cases, because if you don't have the funds to treat whatever medical situation you're facing in that very moment in time, then you are just left to basically have no resolve for that medical emergency. So there's always a underlying tension in the hospitals because the team is understaffed, and then the patients are going in not knowing what the outcome is going to be and if they're going to be able to afford whatever it is that they need for their care. So I think that adds another element of stress and pressure. I know that in the United States, we talk a lot about our healthcare system and we don't think it's as good as it could be, but you can walk into an emergency room and you will be treated and you will be mended up. And yes, you will receive a bill in the mail, in the future, and you will have to pay that. But praise God that you can do that and someone will treat you and take care of you and, get you back to where you needed to be, to the starting point that you needed to be at. So I think that that's something that is hard for people to conceptualize here, is that if you walk into the hospital and your baby is sick and they need a specific medicine and you don't have the $8 that it's going to cost for that medicine, then they say, I'm sorry, best of luck to you for an $8 medicine. So there are definite degrees. I know that we're all feeling this pressure right now and feeling this pinch and feeling uncertain because it's affecting jobs, it's affecting income, it's affecting our projection into the future and, our savings and planning and all of the things that we like to do. But for a lot of people here, it's impacted them day one. With this being the second poorest country in our hemisphere, they were already at a different starting point. And so I think it's good to keep that in mind as well, that yes, everyone is going through this together, but there are people that if they can't be at their truck selling their pineapples today, they have no income. So.
Yeah, and I think I want to reiterate too, just to make sure that we're clear, our partnership with the hospital has started many, many years ago. We started volunteering there in 2015 very regularly. We were volunteering, as you mentioned, at the Children's Foundation for Cancer. We started volunteering and seeing some of the other needs, and that is how we were actually introduced to the need for a maternity home at the hospital. So a lot of our connection there has been very positive, has obviously been wrought with a lot of opportunity. So we've had and seen opportunity to be able to help and be a solution, to find a solution for some of the problems there. But we want to be clear that the hospital itself has always welcomed us in, has always allowed us to operate very freely there. We've been a part of other churches and other groups, and we've also led many, many teams to this particular hospital here in Atlanta. And their response to us has always been very welcoming and very open and very honest with us. And so even as we opened this maternity home just about 6 months ago, our relationship has kind of gotten to a very nice cadence. And so even within this time, this response that we're seeing from the hospital is still very open. There's still very much communication with our national director, Jorge Aludor. He is able to see and spend time face to face, even with the administrators, even on a pretty regular basis, even within this crisis. And so everything that we've seen from that standpoint on a personal level to Connect Global has been positive. We've seen good things, good doctors, great nurses. The staff there has always been very, very helpful to any of our teams, any of those mothers that we're serving right now. They come in and check on the moms all the way out at the maternity home. So they'll come finish their rounds on their wing, and they'll come and check on some of the moms. There's just always been a very open relationship there. And so we want to make sure that we know, that we're going to get through this. The ripples and the effects of some of these things that are going on right now, yes, will still be felt weeks and months and maybe years from now. As Danielle pointed out, this nation was already behind. There was already things that, as hard as people work here, as many programs have been instituted, I've looked at the difference from us living here 5 years ago to now, and there's huge progress. There's huge increase within the infrastructure, within so many things. In private sector and in the government sector, there's just so many things that have been improved upon. Now, like with any nation, there's so many things that still need addressing. And so that's why I think it's so important, especially for the work that we do and so many other NGOs, missionaries, churches in this city and in this nation. It's important for them to continue to try and do as much work as possible now, and also plan for the future work that's going to come up. There's going to be effects, and there's going to be things that are going to happen as the initial, as we flatten the curve and as we get back to sort of somewhat normalcy and we start to eradicate this disease, the effects of commerce being shut down, the effects of government having to sort of isolate and turn inward a little bit and make sure to present a stronger, fortified front, and just so many things that are being affected. Tourism is a huge thing here in Honduras, and that's being impacted. Fruit companies, I saw pictures and videos of the Dole fruit companies and the different places that are, unable to ship or export or move their fruit out. They're donating it on the side of the road. They're lining it up and being in a very organized fashion, able to meet some of the demands with some of those products that would otherwise go unused. And so some people within the context of their business or their government or their NGO status are able to still operate, still work, and they're finding creative and new ways in which to serve the people here. Because like Danielle said, and like we're all kind of making sure to clarify, the need here in Honduras is very great. There's still so many people that are going to go without food, without water, without any access to medical care for sure this week and for the weeks coming ahead. And so we need to be diligent in making sure that we're sharing that story, but sharing it in a very dignified and tailored manner. That way people don't misunderstand what's going on here. There's always been great need here, and now in the light of this pandemic, there's going to be even greater need, and there's some very vulnerable people here that at least within Connect Global, as much as we can control and as within the guidelines that are being set forth, we're trying to help, and we're going to partner with local churches here who also feel that tug and that need to continue to do the work that they've been doing forever. Continue to serve the community, continue to help those who need access to food and water and just basic necessities. There are people here in this country who are going to, like Danielle said, they've got no recourse. They've got no way to get money. They rely on their daily capacity to earn money or earn food or earn water on a daily basis. There's nothing stored up. There's no way for them to have gotten ahead, even ahead of this pandemic. And this thing will only set people back even further.
So let's talk about that. I appreciate you bringing that up and kind of bringing it back to there's always need. There are certain situations that come, and this is an interesting dynamic because the spread of the coronavirus is truly a worldwide issue. You know, there are different degrees to which countries are on lockdown, or different degrees to which they're experiencing the spread of the virus. But it is kind of a unique time in history that this is something that, with the exception of one or two countries, at least as far as the reports that we're getting from the CDC and the World Health Organization, just about every country in the world is experiencing some degree of the spread of COVID-19. And at some point in time, this will go away. So there are people in need who were in need before this. Now here's this COVID-19 situation that the whole world is kind of dealing with. And at some point in time, this is going to go away. But the people, there will still be people in need before, during, and after. And just to kind of throw out this perspective, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, because you've described a couple of things already in the maternity house that's been started, that's still going on. Some of the other outreaches that were started before you were dealing with COVID-19 there in Honduras and the lockdowns that you have, and those outreaches are still going on. And some new things, some new partnerships that we've started with Centro Cristiano International there in La Ceiba, and other things that are going on there. Sometimes I get the impression that as a church community, there's a sense that, okay, well now everything's shut down, so there's nothing I can do. You know, we can't have church anymore. We can't meet in our building on Sunday morning anymore. And maybe I'm, playing the devil's advocate here just a little bit, but there sometimes seems to be this sense of, well, the government has shut me down, or to prevent the spread, we've been shut down. We can't get together in our homes anymore. We can't do our small groups anymore. We can't have our worship service together anymore. The most we can do is kind of live stream and share a message digitally. And practice my baking skills, and that's about it, But it seems to me that there may be some ways that as believers in Jesus, as those who want to go out and care for the world, that there's still some practical things that we do. Certainly using technology like we're doing right now is, I think, one of those methodologies. But what are some of the practices that are going on at the maternity house? How are we keeping that house open? And what are some of the practices that we've initiated with Pastor Allen at CCI there? What are some of the practical things that are happening?
Yeah, that's a good point. We, as a ministry, and I think we're in the same boat as ministries are affected by this in pretty much every nation on this globe right now. We're facing a moment right now where we're needing to quickly adapt and quickly adopt new ways of getting our job done. Never, I think, in at least 100 years has any of us or any of the generations been faced with something quite like this. And so we're trying to quickly adapt and try and figure out what technologies do we need to come up with, which methods do we need to come up with. Seeing churches quickly move into an online-only world but still reaching out to their people, still reaching out to their families, the ones that are within their context that were coming faithfully every Sunday, but even being open to new audience, new people who are maybe had never heard of that church before, or never even heard of church to begin with, are now seeing Facebook and YouTube and all of these streaming sites literally be flooded to the capacity to which some of these sites are not able to handle the traffic. I've seen reports of YouTube and Facebook and even some hosting sites, of some very popular website hosting sites, of crashing on Sunday because there were just too many Christian, mostly, streams going on at one time. And so we've also got to be smart about that. We've got to think about bandwidth, and we've got to think about, even Netflix is feeling the pinch on that, where they're having to kind of idle down some of their streaming efforts in some of the countries that they're being impacted the most, because people are staying home and watching different media and different content from their phones and from their computers. And so as the church, we have to also take some cues to know that we've got to adapt in that same way. We've got to know that, hey, if our stream is going to be right on top of 1,200 other streams, we may need to think about changing our service times. We've got 7 days a week, and we've got 24 hours on each clock. And so there may be some open opportunities to where some churches need to really kind of readjust and look at that and say, hey, if one of the ways that we can still reach our community is through online teaching and preaching models, then we've got to be able to make sure that we're not putting undue stress on those servers, so that our message can actually get out, so that we can actually continue to provide those services in that way. Some of the other methods, of course, we want to make sure, especially in our context here, that we're adhering to both the global CDC and World Health Organization's mandates and even suggestions. We obviously are wanting to adhere to the government, the local government here in Honduras, and even in our city. The mayor just left, like we said before, some new updated schedules and things that we are gotta adhere to. But within that context, there's so much margin. You have to understand that within any restrictive movements, we want to be safe first and foremost. We want to be clear from the virus ourselves, not only just for the safety of our family, but also for the safety of those who we're serving. We don't want to be a burden. We don't want to add to this crisis or this pandemic. And so we got to be smart about it, but we definitely have seen already there are some margins. There are some ways in which we can continue to serve those people. So one instance is the maternity home. We opened 6 months ago. We've served already 318 moms there. We serve anywhere between 6 and 10 at a time. So currently we have about 6 moms in there right now. And we're feeding them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They know that this place they can come into and have a safe, clean environment in which to wait, because right now they're waiting on their children who at all odds are going to, hopefully make it through these first days and first weeks of their life. But they're at their own challenges. They're at their own health challenges. The reason these moms are in our maternity home is because those babies either came a little bit too early or have respiratory issues, or they've got other things that are preventing them from going home safely and healthily. And so we want to make sure that within our context, we can be smart and use wisdom. We want to adhere to some of these restrictions and suggestions that are being made worldwide. But within that, we're able to say, hey, we've done our due diligence and re-sanitizing and extra care to make sure that all surfaces are clean, and we're wearing masks in and out of the hospital. We've sort of implemented change of clothes, so that way we're rotating even the fabrics and the clothes that are worn in and out of the hospital. We have the advantage of having the maternity home be a little bit separate. There's no connecting, joining walls or joining corridors that connect to the hospital. So there's a very easy way to enter and exit through just the maternity home, completely circumventing the normal hallways of the hospital. And so we've taken at least every measure that we know we can and that we've been suggested to. And within those contexts, within those margins, lie the opportunities to still serve those moms. We see pictures every single morning and every single evening of those moms gathering to pray, gathering to eat, sharing their hearts with each other, our team being able to be there. Even in some of the hardest, most difficult moments, when the baby doesn't make it and the baby hasn't survived in the past few weeks. We've had several. And even in those moments, our team and our staff are diligent to stay there, to stay at their post, to be as wise as they can, but to be on top of their wisdom, compassionate, because those moms have no place else. They have no one else right now. Some of them are very young. Some of them are 15, 16 years old. Others are just, this is their first child ever. This is their first opportunity to bring life into this world. And they're doing it in a time that the whole world is turning inward. The whole world is protecting the sanctity of life, whether that be their own or their families or the people that are closest to them. And these mothers are bringing new life into the world during this time. And so we feel as a team that whatever we can do, however long we can do it, we're going to serve those moms. We're going to be there for them. We're going to care for them. We're going to give them a shoulder to cry on, or we're going to give them a meal when they're hungry. We're going to give them a very clean space to recover and to deal with this new situation that they're finding themselves in. And so there's things that all ministries, whether you're a church, an NGO, a nonprofit, whatever your status is, there are things that you can do within the margin, within the context of safety and security and really adhering to the things that are being suggested that we do. You can find still opportunities, whether that be in an online format like this, whether that be in a person-to-person, if that's possible where you're at. Whatever the system is, there's going to be opportunities that lie there that you can explore, but we need to get creative. It's time right now for the church especially, but for those who care and have compassion in their hearts to serve others, it's important that right now we don't become isolated to the point at which we forget that there are people suffering at a greater degree than we may be right now, whether they've become sick or whether they're dealing with other things or whether they live in a poverty-stricken nation or certain other elements that have affected them. There are people, just as always, that are going to be in a greater position of need than we are currently. It's just how it is. And no matter what level you're at, no matter where you've become, or gotten to or attained, somewhere there's a level, there's a degree, there's a spectrum of people from one side to the other that on different levels will need help. And so we want to be a part of that. We want to do our part in saying, hey, we're here with you. We're also partnering with the local churches here, trying to make sure that within the hours of going to stores and purchasing items and being able to get resources, that we can then go and distribute with the local churches who already have people either lined up or at least in their mind that they know, hey, these people are already vulnerable. They were already at a position where they were not able to move ahead, or they're being hit right now. We had a person, one of our main volunteers, one of the guys who's always at all of our outreaches and he comes to all of our programs. He's a single dad of two. He called us the other day. We called and checked on him actually. Jorge called and checked on him and said, hey, this guy's without groceries. He's kind of getting to the end of his supply. Because he's a small business owner. He's trying to be an entrepreneur. He's working at being a business owner of a gym. And right now, gyms are being hit. Just as in the United States and around the world, this gym that he's running is being affected. Nobody can go to the gym. And if nobody can go to the gym, nobody can pay him to come and work out with him. And so there's very real opportunities that we're finding out about and that we're looking for to make sure that, hey, if there's somebody in need and we can help, we're going to help them. And so just a few days ago, we were able to deliver to him some groceries, a little bit of cash to make sure that he can stay through the next couple of weeks and see if he can make it, through this next layer of curfews and restrictions, because we care about all the people in this community, and especially those who are the most vulnerable, who are the most at risk of missing out on meals, missing out on clean water, missing out on the essentials that all of us should be guaranteed. We want to be there for them. We want to help them. And so that's why we're partnering with Pastor Allen and some of the other churches and pastors here in this city to work within the web that we've been given to go to the stores on the days we can, travel one at a time as we can, and deliver those resources to the ones who need it the most. So that's what we're trying to do for Connect Global. And we encourage anybody and everyone, whether you're an individual business, church, or a nonprofit, there are opportunities. We just have to look for them.
That's awesome. I think in a situation like this, like you said, as a world, we've never faced something that has been as global as this, at least certainly not in our generations, and maybe never. There certainly have been other worldwide pandemics and things like that, but this has just struck the whole world in such a unique way. I think that we can sometimes forget that there are other people who are facing challenges that aren't directly related to COVID-19, like these mothers, like these brand new mothers who were delivering these children and in need of this maternity house before COVID-19 came onto the scene, and will be there afterwards. You guys are parents. Javier, you're a dad. Danielle, you're a mom. Danielle, what have you observed as far as the impact to the mothers who've been able to come into the house either before we were working to prevent the spread of COVID-19, or now? Has there been a change in the mood or the tone or the morale of our team, the ladies who are working there in the house, or the morale of the mothers? What do you sense as a mom in your interactions with these moms in this house?
Well, I think Javi touched on it a few minutes ago, but specifically in regards to our full-time team that's there, he said that they're manning the post, and yes, they're manning the post, and we think of that as something that they're doing physically. They're taking their physical being there, even though they have some fear and some uncertainty for themselves of, okay, I'm in this proximity to the hospital, and these mothers are coming in and out because they're going to visit their babies during those hours, and then they're coming back here to rest. But they're also there and available emotionally. And so I think that I don't think that it's specific just to this time, but I think that it can wear on people because when you're treating something as a ministry and not just as a job, your heart gets more involved. And so I think that because they deeply care for every mother that's coming in, they face harder days. You know, it's not a hard day at the office because your boss said, well, you didn't hit this number and that's going to affect our bottom line. It's a hard day at the office because this mother had 2 children she brought into the world and she's only taking 1 home. And so I think that it's very emotional for our team that's there day in and day out, just to see the need and to be constantly reminded of, you know, some of these different dynamics that maybe we would choose to look away from if given the opportunity. But this team, and we as a team, and all of us, and you and Gina, we've chosen not to look away from these things. We've chosen to look at them, to feel it, and then to say, okay, what's our part? How do we get involved? What do we do to make a difference and to make an impact? And so I think that in maybe one positive thing that could come from this very terrible thing that's hitting the world at large is that maybe it's going to recenter us as people, as Christians, as believers in Christ, to remind ourselves of what being the church actually is. I think that for a very long time, it has been something that we view as a place that we go. Church is where we go. It's what we do 1 day a week for most people, maybe 2 if you're super spiritual. But it's not something we consider as who we are or what that means and how we're supposed to function with the rest of the world. And so I think that we have the opportunity to take a moment to reassess, to recalibrate, and to really dive into being the church. And I think that we've really lost that in a lot of ways in many countries. And so I think that that's just something that we can kind of recalibrate, recoup, and hopefully find, you know, a better solution to how what is it about my life that would attract someone to Jesus Christ? What is it about my life that would not attract someone to Jesus Christ? And living in such a way that we actually are being the church. And so I think that with our team at the maternity home, that's what they're doing on a daily basis. Yes, they're getting a paycheck, Yes, it's all of those things, but that's not why they're there. They're there because they believe in the mission, and they knew from the moment that they signed on that this is primarily a ministry. Yes, we want to put in some structure, and we want you to have earnings for what you're doing and for your 12-hour shifts and for all that's going to be required of you. But your first and primary responsibility is to love the women that come in here and to show them that Jesus loves them and he loves their baby. And so I think that for the moms specifically that are coming in and out, I know that it's given them a sense of dignity, because there's not a lot of dignity that goes into delivering a baby and then being asked to go lay on the floor for days on end. It's given them some comfort, because again, it's not very comfortable to deliver a baby and then you're recourse to go and lay on the concrete floor, to be exposed to the elements. So I think for the moms, this is a scary time to bring a child into the world, even outside of COVID-19. There's just a lot of scary things out there, and there's people that we know personally who have chosen not to have children because they don't think that this is a world that they want to bring new life into. And so while that theory and that practice is, fewer and far between than your average family, we do know people personally that have made that choice because it's a scary world. So I think that a lot of the mothers at the maternity home are really just facing this day by day. And I think their priority is mostly that their baby is released from the NICU. And so I'm sure now there's another element of just praying that their baby is not exposed to anything extra, because they're already facing complications. And that's why they're still there. So we try always to not operate out of a position of fear, because it's very easy to go down that path. And if you start going down that path, a lot of people will join you. And so we don't try and keep things just positive for the sake of being positive or good vibes or whatever, all the stuff that's out there, thoughts and prayers. But when we say we're going to pray for someone, we actually do. And we actually believe that there's power in that. And so we don't, even though we know the realities of this current situation, and we know the realities of all the hardships that were here before this situation, we know that we have a calling. We know you have a calling. We know everyone listening to this has a calling. And it's up to us to how we're going to engage in that. And all it comes down to is your choice. And so sometimes, Javier had said earlier, we as a ministry, and yes, we are a ministry, the four of us co-founded Connect Global 9 years ago, but really at the end of the day, we're just people. We're just people that saw a need and felt completely overwhelmed and felt completely inadequate and felt completely unable to attain any significant impact or make any significant difference. But we said it's really not about us and about how we feel. We see this and we feel that this is what we're supposed to do, and we're going to go ahead and do it, and we're going to do it a little scared. And here we are today. So I think that
still a little scared and still making the choice.
Exactly. And so I think sometimes it's easy to think, well, that's so great for you, or you have some special mojo that makes you able to do that, or well, God must really like you and he gave you this or that or whatever.
Right.
God has given us all everything we need to fulfill the calling he has given us as individuals. And so like I said just a moment ago, it's up to us as the individual to actually say yes and to engage in that. And so we appreciate the support of everybody. We appreciate the friendship. We appreciate the emotional support. We appreciate the financial support. We appreciate the prayers, all of those things. And I would just ask for people listening, ask God what he wants from you specifically. And what does that look like? And maybe it's not moving to a developing country and, having a home that has bars on every window and razor wire in the front yard. Maybe it doesn't look like that for you. Maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah.
But take a minute, maybe take 10, maybe take the next year to really ask God what he has asked you to do, and to go ahead and do it, even if you're a little bit afraid.
That's awesome. You know, the Bible says to celebrate with those who celebrate and weep with those who weep. And I think what you were describing, Danielle, is so good, because each one of us has an opportunity to come alongside somebody where they're at in life. If they're celebrating, celebrate with them.
Yeah.
If they're weeping, weep with them. And that verse has just rung out in my ears over the last months of our maternity home. But I think it really captures what you're describing. Each one of us, whether it's, you know, us in Connect Global or anybody listening to this, you know, you might be listening to this podcast or watching this video thinking, man, I own a small business. I work at a big corporation. I just got laid off. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I'm a single, young adult, old adult, whatever. What can I do? You know, is there anything about my life that can be something? And like you pointed out, Danielle, sometimes we just open our eyes and are willing to look at the pain or the need or the situation that someone else is in, and then just come alongside. How can we engage that person on a personal level? You know, there's so many opportunities that we have right now. Pick up the phone. I'm not a big phone call guy, you know, but Javier had mentioned last week, hey, just call some people. So I started just calling people, and it has really struck me over the last few days even, the people, pastors, Christians, non-Christians in my life, business owners, just kind of randomly calling friends, you know, of how they want to talk and they want to share, hey, this is what's going on, and here's where we're at. People want that connection, you know. Send that text message that you're thinking about, send that email that you're thinking about, call that missionary who's on the field that you're thinking about. They really want to hear from you. Call your pastor, encourage them. A lot of the pastors I know are calling the people in their church. So keeping it personal, I think, is so important. There are those big block items, you know. Pastors want to reach to their congregation. We need to keep the maternity house going. But at the end of the day, all of those, say, big programs, if we want to call it that, should be ways of facilitating the personal connection. How do we get personal in somebody's life? And I think that's so important. So guys, we appreciate you guys so much taking some time out to listen to this podcast, to watch this video. We hope that this has been encouraging to you. As we mentioned before, we are relaunching this, so you'll see more episodes of this global neighborhood. We really want to have a global, international conversation. We have some other friends that we'll be inviting to join us over the next several episodes. We would encourage you to share this out on your social media platforms, whether that's on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram. If you're listening to this on wherever you listen to your podcasts, we'll have this both in a video format as well as in an audio format. If you want to get more information about Connect Global and what's going on in all of the workings of Connect Global here in other nations that we're in, you can always find out more information on our website at goservechange.com. That's goservechange.com. I want to give a huge shout out and just appreciation to Javier and Danielle and to their daughter Sage. We're so proud of you guys, and just being obedient to follow the voice of the Lord, who said, I want you here. I want you here in Honduras. And you guys have made that step. And it's just been awesome to see such incredible fruit and such just taking it day by day, like you said, being obedient to that calling every single day. And just to see already in these 2 short months, to see already the acceleration of the care and the ministry and things like that are going on in Honduras. And especially now, it's a season where we're trying to figure out, you know, how do we bring teams in? Can we bring teams in? But you guys are boots on the ground. And so just from the whole team at Connect Global, we really appreciate you guys. So everybody, again, thanks again for joining us on this podcast. We would love to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, please share those in the comments section on whatever social media your platform that you're on, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever on the podcast. You can email us. Javier, give us some connection points as far as email addresses and things like that, if it's not in a comment section on a social media.
Yeah, so like you said, the main point of contact is always going to be our website. It's goservechange.com. There you can find ways to contact each of us individually. You can reach out to us on Facebook, Facebook/Connect Global. On Instagram, it's going to be Instagram/iConnectGlobal. And so there's different ways that you can connect with us. We try and share our hearts and our posts and the different activities and things going on. Right now, we just want to also reach out and just be there for you. None of what we do, we could do without you. And so we really want to make sure that you know we care about you. Right now, there's also a section on our website for prayer requests. So if there's anything specific that you have that's a need or something that you're going through, maybe you or your family members, there's a place on there. You can go to goservechange.com/prayer. You can submit your prayer online right there. There's a very quick and easy form. It's private. Don't worry about that. We're not going to share your information. Our team, our local team, is going to be the ones praying for you. And so you can rest assured that if you want us to reach out to you, we will. If it's just a, hey, I just need someone to stand with me and pray with me, trust that we're going to do that because we know that right now, as you've been here for us, we're going to be here for you. And so we really appreciate all that you've done and all the things that you continue to do, because like I said, we could not do what we do without you.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. God bless you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Bless. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to learn more, connect with us at goservechange.com.